You wake up in the morning, and before your eyes even fully open, you already feel the weight of the day pressing down on you. The alarm rings, your body aches, and for a brief moment, you think about staying in bed just a little longer. But something deep inside pushes you to move. You swing your feet onto the floor, take a breath, and stand up. To most people, that action seems small, almost automatic. But for someone fighting pain, exhaustion, or even the heavy fog of stress and doubt, it is nothing short of an act of courage. That simple decision to rise, to face the day despite the battle within, is a quiet victory that deserves recognition. We often think of strength as loud and dramatic, people lifting impossible weights, soldiers charging into battle, or heroes leaping across screens in slow motion. But the truth is, most of the strength in this world doesn't look like that at all. Real strength, the kind that sustains lives and shapes futures, often whispers instead of shouts. It shows up in subtle decisions that no one else may notice. The decision to get out of bed when depression says stay down. The decision to walk into work when fear says you're not good enough. The decision to try again after yesterday's failure. These are the unseen battles, the ones happening silently in millions of lives every single day. Think about it. You don't get applause when you choose patience in traffic instead of anger. No one hands you a medal when you confront a difficult conversation with honesty rather than avoidance. You don't go viral online for showing up to class, to work, or to your responsibilities when every part of you wants to quit. Yet each of these moments is proof of resilience. Each of these choices, invisible as they may seem, reflect an inner strength that deserves to be honored. It's easy to underestimate the courage it takes just to keep going. Someone living with chronic pain, for example, fights a battle every single day. Their mornings might be filled with stiffness, their nights restless, their energy drained before the day even begins. And yet they still show up. They still walk their children to school, they still prepare meals, they still keep their promises. To the outside world, it may look like nothing extraordinary, but if you really pay attention, you'll realize that the ability to keep moving forward despite that constant struggle is heroic in its own way. Or consider the person battling anxiety. Every interaction feels like a mountain climb. Every meeting feels like standing under a spotlight. Their heart races, their thoughts spiral, and still they take a deep breath and step into the room. That's bravery, not the kind you'll see in headlines, but the kind that changes lives one step at a time. Because every time they choose courage over comfort, they strengthen the invisible muscles of resilience. And then there are the parents who day after day juggle endless responsibilities. The ones who wake up early to prepare their kids for school, rush to their jobs, handle bills, chores, deadlines, and still manage to smile when they tuck their children into bed. The world may not notice their sacrifices. Social media may not spotlight their exhaustion. But within those daily acts lies an extraordinary story of love, grit, and determination. The silent strength of a parent who refuses to give up is one of the purest forms of resilience. What about you? How many times have you quietly pushed through something you thought might break you? Maybe you dragged yourself through a day at work when you were grieving inside. Maybe you smiled at someone, even when you were hurting. Maybe you kept showing up for a dream that wasn't giving you instant results, refusing to let discouragement win. You may not have thought of it as courage at the time, but that's exactly what it was. You were fighting an unseen battle, and you won, even if just for that moment. The beautiful and humbling truth is that resilience doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the soft whisper of, "I'll try again tomorrow." Sometimes it's the quiet decision to take one more step when you'd rather collapse. Sometimes it's the steady heartbeat of persistence that no one else can hear but you. And while the world may overlook these small victories, they are the very things that shape character, build strength, and carry us forward. If we redefine courage to include these everyday acts, we'd start to see heroes all around us. The coworker who keeps showing up despite personal struggles. The student who studies long after everyone else has gone to bed. The elderly person who fights loneliness by still choosing to reach out for connection. These are not headline stories, but they are life stories. Stories of persistence that deserve to be told and celebrated. There is a quiet dignity in fighting a battle no one else sees. And perhaps the most powerful part of these unseen battles is that they remind us we're not alone. When you look closer, you'll notice that everyone around you, your friends, your family, even strangers on the street, are carrying something. Some are carrying visible burdens, but most are carrying invisible ones. And yet, despite it all, they continue. They continue to wake up, to move forward, to try. That's resilience at its finest. And here's the question I want you to carry with you. What unseen battles have you fought today? Maybe it was as simple as saying no when it was easier to say yes. Maybe it was choosing to get out of bed when everything in you wanted to hide. Maybe it was resisting the temptation to give up on yourself. Every single one of those decisions counts. Every single one is evidence of strength, even if no one else claps for you. So the next time you feel invisible in your struggle, remember this: courage doesn't always look like fireworks. More often, it looks like showing up, like trying again, like refusing to let hardship define you. And in those moments, even when you don't see it yourself, you are embodying the silent strength that keeps this world moving. Take a moment right now to reflect. Think back on the last week, the last month, the last year. How many times have you chosen persistence over surrender? How many times have you quietly fought through exhaustion, fear, or pain? You may not give yourself enough credit for those victories, but today, I want you to recognize them. Because every step forward you've taken, no matter how small, is proof of your resilience. You don't have to save the world to be strong. You don't need a stage or a spotlight or a story that sounds dramatic. Your strength lives in the small, consistent actions you take every day. And while the world may not see them, they matter. They matter more than you know. So tonight, when you lay your head on your pillow, remind yourself of this simple truth. You are stronger than you think. Your unseen battles are not signs of weakness, but proof of extraordinary resilience. And tomorrow, when the alarm rings again, and the day asks for your effort once more, remember, getting up, showing up, and refusing to quit might just be the bravest thing you'll ever do.
When we think about heroes, our minds often go to the obvious names: the celebrities, the athletes, the public figures whose lives are displayed on big screens. But the truth is, the real heroes, the ones who carry entire worlds on their shoulders, rarely make headlines. They walk among us quietly, blending into the background, their strength hidden in plain sight. And yet without them, the fabric of everyday life would unravel. These are the unsung heroes, the people whose daily resilience keeps families together, communities running, and hope alive. Think about the student who stays up late, night after night, staring at textbooks with tired eyes. The pressure feels unbearable, the exams endless, and the doubts constant. Maybe no one notices their silent tears or the hours of sacrifice when everyone else is sleeping. But still, they keep going. They push through exhaustion because they believe, deep down, that their efforts will lead to something better. Their perseverance is not glamorous, and it won't be posted for likes. But that determination to keep learning, to keep striving, is a quiet act of courage. Or consider the single parent. Each morning, they wake up before the sun rises, making breakfast while mentally preparing for a full day of work. They drop their kids off at school, head to their job, handle tasks, endure deadlines, and then come home to face another shift. Cooking, cleaning, listening, guiding, comforting. Their energy is stretched thin, their own dreams often put on hold. And still, they smile at their children, because in their eyes, giving love and stability is more important than receiving recognition. That single parent is a hero. Not the kind you'll see on posters, but the kind who keeps the world going one day at a time. Then there's the worker who shows up every day despite battling quiet storms within. Maybe it's grief they haven't shared with anyone. Maybe it's anxiety that grips them when no one is watching. Maybe it's financial pressure that weighs on their chest like a stone. Yet still, they clock in, answer calls, meet deadlines, and provide for their families. They don't quit, even when it feels unbearable. They carry on, not because it's easy, but because the people they love depend on them. That perseverance, unseen by the outside world, is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Heroes are not always defined by what they conquer outwardly, but by what they endure inwardly. And yet, we overlook them all the time. We rush past the delivery driver who works through rain, sun, and exhaustion to make sure packages and meals arrive. We barely notice the cashier who greets us with a smile, even after hours of standing on tired feet. We don't stop to thank the janitor who cleans late at night so that the next morning our offices, schools, and hospitals are safe and welcoming. These are the people who may not wear capes, but without them, our daily routines would fall apart. And it's not just about physical effort. Some heroes carry emotional battles that no one else can see. There's the friend who struggles with depression but still checks in to make sure others are okay. There's the colleague who silently sacrifices their own comfort to lighten someone else's load. There's the neighbor who, despite their own loneliness, still waves and smiles at passers-by to brighten their day. These small acts don't make the news, but they change lives in ways we can't always measure. Pause for a moment and think, who in your life embodies this kind of silent strength? Maybe it's a parent who always held the family together, even when life was falling apart behind closed doors. Maybe it's a teacher who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Maybe it's a friend who listened to your pain without judgment, carrying a part of your burden so you didn't have to carry it alone. These people rarely see themselves as heroes, but their impact is immeasurable. What makes these everyday heroes so extraordinary is that they rarely ask for recognition. They don't demand applause, they don't chase fame. They simply do what needs to be done, guided by love, duty, or an unshakable belief that giving their best, even when it's hard, is worth it. And because they act without seeking reward, their heroism becomes even more powerful. But here's the challenge. Because their battles are unseen, their victories often go unnoticed. And when victories go unnoticed, they can start to feel invisible. That's why it matters so much for us to stop, to look closer, and to honor the strength we see in others. A simple thank you, a genuine compliment, or even just an acknowledgement can turn an unseen struggle into a recognized triumph. It can remind someone that their quiet resilience is not wasted, that their efforts matter. Imagine how different the world would feel if we treated everyday perseverance with the same reverence we give to grand achievements. If we clapped for the parent finishing another long day. If we applauded the student who studied despite doubt. If we honored the worker who kept showing up despite hardship. The truth is, when we recognize resilience in others, we give them the fuel to keep going. And sometimes that recognition can mean the difference between despair and hope. Now let's make this personal. Close your eyes for a second and picture someone in your life who has shown you quiet strength. Maybe it's a parent who always held the family together, even when life was falling apart behind closed doors. Maybe it's a teacher who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Maybe it's a friend who listened to your pain without judgment, carrying a part of your burden so you didn't have to carry it alone. These people rarely see themselves as heroes, but their impact is immeasurable. The beauty of these unsung heroes is that they remind us resilience isn't rare, it's everywhere. It's in a friend who refuses to let go of hope. It's in a coworker who shows up with a smile despite carrying grief. It's in a neighbor who keeps going even when no one notices their struggle. These examples surround us daily, and when we finally stop to see them, we realize that we're all connected by this invisible thread of courage. So, the next time you're tempted to think of strength as something distant or unreachable, remember the quiet warriors around you, the ones who keep going when it's easier to give up, the ones who fight battles you'll never know about, the ones who shape the world not with noise, but with persistence, patience, and love. And don't just notice them, let them know. Tell them, I see you, I appreciate you, You are stronger than you realize. Because here's the truth. Recognition doesn't just honor the person receiving it, it also changes the one who gives it. When you start to see the resilience in others, you begin to recognize it in yourself. When you acknowledge their courage, you awaken your own. And in that exchange, both lives are enriched, strengthened, and uplifted. So, I'll leave you with this thought. Who is the unsung hero in your life? And what would happen if you took just one moment to honor their silent strength? Maybe you'll inspire them to keep going. Maybe you'll remind them they're not invisible. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that the truest heroes have been beside you all along.
Think for a moment about the way a single drop of water can disturb an entire pond. The ripples spread outward, touching areas far from where the drop first landed. In the same way, our quiet acts of resilience, the ones that seem small and unimportant in the moment, carry an impact that extends far beyond what we can see. Every time you choose patience, kindness, or persistence, you're sending out ripples that may reach someone else's heart in ways you'll never fully know. Consider the power of a kind word. Imagine someone standing on the edge of frustration, ready to snap, ready to give up, and then, unexpectedly, someone speaks to them with gentleness. "I know you're doing your best," or "It's okay, you'll figure it out." That small moment of compassion might prevent a breakdown. It might give them the strength to keep going. To you, it was just a sentence. To them, it was a lifeline. That's the ripple effect in action. Your choice to offer kindness changes the direction of someone else's day. Or think about consistency. Imagine a person who shows up day after day, working quietly toward a goal. Maybe it's the artist sketching late at night, the runner training each morning, or the student reviewing notes long after friends have gone out. At first, nothing seems to happen. The progress feels invisible and doubt creeps in. But over time, those small, consistent acts add up to something extraordinary. The runner finishes a marathon. The artist holds an exhibition. The student graduates with honors. None of those victories came from one grand moment of triumph. They came from hundreds of small, unseen acts of resilience that built momentum until change became visible. The truth is, small acts rarely stay small. When you choose to smile at a stranger, you could be interrupting their spiral of loneliness. When you take the time to listen instead of rushing someone off, you validate their worth. When you keep showing up to your responsibilities even on hard days, you become an example to those watching you, your children, your friends, your colleagues. Your quiet persistence tells them, without words, it's possible to keep going. And sometimes that silent message is enough to spark courage in someone else. We tend to underestimate the cumulative power of these moments. We wait for big breakthroughs, forgetting that big breakthroughs are nothing more than the sum of many small efforts. Think about a brick wall. Each brick alone seems insignificant, but together they create a structure strong enough to protect and endure. Resilience works the same way. Every time you choose to keep moving, every time you refuse to let discouragement win, you're laying another brick. And eventually, those bricks form a foundation that can withstand storms. Let's make it practical. A mother speaks gently to her child after a hard day, planting seeds of patience that will bloom years later in how that child treats others. A teacher encourages a student who feels invisible, sparking a belief that eventually leads to confidence, which eventually leads to success. A worker keeps showing up on time, quietly inspiring their team with reliability, even if no one ever says it out loud. None of these people thought they were changing the world, and yet, through their actions, they were. Sometimes the ripple effect shows up in surprising ways. You hold the door for someone, not knowing they've had a terrible morning. Your small gesture softens their mood, and later, they extend kindness to a coworker. That coworker goes home feeling lighter and treats their family with more love. By the end of the day, your single act of holding a door has multiplied into a chain of kindness that reached people you'll never meet. Isn't that incredible? But the ripple effect isn't only about kindness to others, it also shapes you. When you practice resilience through small acts, you rewire your own mind. Each choice strengthens the muscle of perseverance. Each victory, no matter how tiny, builds confidence that carries into the next challenge. Eventually, you start to see yourself differently. You no longer define yourself by the battles you've lost, but by the persistence you've shown. You begin to realize that you are capable of far more than you once believed. And here's something powerful. Resilience is contagious. When people witness you facing struggles with quiet strength, they are inspired to do the same. A colleague sees you balancing pressure without collapsing, and suddenly they think, if they can keep going, maybe I can too. A child watches their parent persist despite obstacles, and they grow up learning that setbacks are not the end. Your example becomes someone else's encouragement, and that encouragement becomes their resilience. The cycle continues, reaching farther than you'll never know. It's easy to think our actions don't matter unless they're dramatic, but life is not built on drama. Life is built on the accumulation of ordinary choices made with extraordinary persistence. Every time you resist the urge to give up, every time you choose to hope instead of despair, you contribute to a chain reaction of resilience that will ripple into the future. Think back to a time in your own life when someone else's small act made a difference for you. Maybe it was a teacher who said, "I believe in you." Maybe it was a stranger who smiled when you were feeling unseen. Maybe it was a parent who worked tirelessly to keep food on the table. In that moment, their act may have seemed simple, but to you, it became a turning point. Their strength rippled into your story, shaping who you are today. Now, flip that perspective. Who is being shaped right now by your small acts? You may not realize it, but someone is watching. Someone is learning from the way you persist, from the way you handle challenges, from the way you show kindness even when it's hard. They may never tell you, but your resilience is influencing them in ways you cannot see. That is the beauty of the ripple effect. It travels quietly, invisibly, and powerfully. And so I invite you to begin seeing your daily actions differently. When you choose patience instead of anger, you're creating ripples. When you encourage someone else, you're creating ripples. When you show up on days you'd rather quit, you are creating ripples. They may not look like much in the moment, but over time, they shape lives, relationships, communities, and even generations. The next time you feel like your effort doesn't matter, remember the pond. Remember the drop of water and the way its ripples expand far beyond where it first fell. Your life works the same way. Every small act of resilience you practice today will stretch into tomorrow and tomorrow into the future, touching lives you may never see. And perhaps the greatest truth of all is this: no act of resilience is wasted, not one. Even if no one notices, even if no one thanks you, even if you feel invisible, the ripples are still moving, still touching hearts, still building strength. Your unseen battles are shaping not just your story, but the stories of countless others in ways you may never realize. So the next time you doubt the value of your persistence, pause. Picture the ripples spreading outward from every small choice you make. Picture the lives being touched. And remind yourself, resilience is never small because its effects are infinite.
When you hear the word strength, what comes to mind? For most of us, the image is immediate. A bodybuilder lifting heavy weights, a soldier standing tall on the battlefield, a champion raising a trophy high above their head. These are the symbols we've been taught to associate with power and resilience. But what if we've been looking at strength the wrong way all along? What if true courage is far quieter, more subtle, and far more present in our everyday lives than we ever imagined? It's time to rewire our perception.
For too long, society has glorified outward displays of might, while overlooking the quiet, invisible forms of resilience that actually sustain us. We celebrate the victory, but ignore the countless small steps it took to get there. We admire the final product, but overlook the daily persistence that shaped it. And because of that, so many people walk through life thinking they are weak, when in reality, they are some of the strongest souls alive. Take, for example, the person who wakes up every morning with anxiety gnawing at their chest. To them, strength doesn't look like lifting weights in the gym. It looks like getting dressed, walking out the door, and choosing to face the day despite the fear that whispers they can't. Their resilience is invisible to others, but it is as real, as difficult, and as courageous as any battle fought on a stage. Or think about the individual managing chronic illness. Society might not see their courage because it's not a movie-worthy spectacle, but every pill swallowed, every appointment attended, every day they push through the exhaustion is a victory. It's a kind of strength that doesn't get a medal, but it deserves one. They may not fit the picture of hero that the world paints, yet they embody perseverance in its purest form. We need to ask ourselves, why do we glorify the dramatic and dismiss the ordinary? Why do we measure strength only in ways that are visible, flashy, or celebrated in the media? If we only define resilience through those narrow lenses, we fail to see the vast ocean of courage flowing through everyday people all around us. Rewiring our perception begins with widening our definition of strength. Instead of seeing it only as physical power or public success, we can begin to recognize inner fortitude, emotional discipline, and the ability to keep going when no one is watching. Strength is not just a shout of victory, it is also the whisper of persistence. But how do we train ourselves to see this hidden resilience? It starts with observation. Too often, we move through our days blind to the quiet battles happening around us. The coworker who still shows up despite personal struggles, the neighbor who waves hello even though loneliness weighs on them, the child who keeps trying despite repeated mistakes. These moments are easy to miss if we're not paying attention. One powerful practice is journaling. Each evening, take a moment to write down the small victories you witnessed in yourself. Did you get through a conversation you were nervous about? Did you stay calm when anger wanted to take over? Did you show up for your responsibilities despite exhaustion? Recording these acts may seem simple, but over time, you'll begin to see patterns. You'll realize that resilience isn't rare in your life, it's constant. You'll start to recognize strength not just in others, but in yourself. Another practice is acknowledgement. When you notice someone showing quiet resilience, say something. It doesn't have to be dramatic. A simple, "I see how hard you're working," or "I know that wasn't easy and I admire your effort," can transform a person's day. Recognition validates resilience. It tells people their unseen battles matter. And in that validation, they often find the motivation to keep going. This shift in perception doesn't just help others, it transforms us too. When we learn to see resilience in small acts, we stop dismissing our own. We stop calling ourselves weak simply because we don't fit the world's definition of strong. We begin to value the persistence that keeps us moving, even when no one claps for us. And once we embrace that, our confidence grows. Think about how much different your life could feel if you honored your small victories instead of ignoring them. Imagine how empowering it would be to say, "I showed strength today by choosing patience," or "I was resilient today because I didn't let discouragement stop me." By redefining what counts as strength, you not only rewire your perception, but also rewire your self-worth. The truth is, every single one of us has been conditioned by society's narrow standards of resilience. We scroll through highlight reels on social media, comparing our quiet struggles to someone else's loud achievements. We watch movies that celebrate the dramatic climax, but rarely show the ordinary persistence that made it possible. And slowly, without even realizing it, we internalize the belief that our struggles don't matter unless they look impressive. But that is a lie. Rewiring our perception requires courage. It asks us to resist the temptation of comparison. It asks us to step back and say, my strength doesn't need to look like anyone else's. It asks us to recognize that persistence, even in the smallest form, has immeasurable value. And here's the beautiful part. Once we begin to see resilience differently, we start treating people differently. We stop dismissing them as just a student, just a parent, just an employee. We begin to recognize the extraordinary battles behind those labels. That shift can change relationships, deepen empathy, and remind us that everyone carries a story worth honoring. So let me ask you this. Who in your life have you overlooked because their strength didn't look obvious? Whose quiet resilience deserves acknowledgement? And how often have you dismissed your own persistence simply because it didn't look like the kind of strength you were taught to celebrate? When you reframe these questions, your world begins to change. You see resilience everywhere, in the tired eyes of a nurse finishing another long shift, in the cracked hands of a worker providing for their family, in the nervous smile of a child who chooses to try again after failing. And suddenly, the world doesn't look like a place full of ordinary people. It looks like a place full of extraordinary resilience. So here is the challenge. From this day forward, choose to notice. Choose to honor. Choose to rewire the way you define strength. Celebrate the quiet victories, both in yourself and in others. Because when you shift your perception, you unlock a deeper appreciation of life itself. And maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to see that the truest strength is not found in trophies or headlines, but in the unseen battles that are won quietly, day after day.
Resilience isn't just something you're born with. It's not reserved for a special few. It's a muscle, one that every single person can build and strengthen with practice. And just like any muscle, the more you work it, the stronger it becomes. Cultivating resilience doesn't require dramatic acts of bravery. It begins with small, simple choices you can make each day. Choices that over time build into a well of quiet strength that you can draw from when life feels overwhelming. So, how do you start? The first step is mindfulness. Too often we move through our days on autopilot, rushing from one task to the next without pausing to notice the battles we've already fought and the victories we've already won. Mindfulness pulls us back into the present moment. It reminds us to slow down and recognize the resilience in even the smallest of actions. When you stop and notice, I showed patience just now, or I kept moving despite my fear, you begin to see strength where before you only saw struggle. That awareness is the seed of resilience. The second step is setting small, achievable goals. We often overwhelm ourselves by looking at the mountain instead of the next step. But resilience is built not by leaping to the top, but by climbing steadily, one foothold at a time. Maybe your goal is as simple as getting out of bed on a difficult morning, finishing one assignment, or choosing to make one healthy decision today. Each small achievement becomes proof to yourself that you can keep going. And as those victories accumulate, your confidence grows, and so does your ability to face bigger challenges. Self-compassion is another vital practice. Too many of us confuse resilience with perfection. We think being strong means never stumbling, never breaking down, never making mistakes. But true resilience isn't about never falling. It's about how you rise after you fall. And the way you speak to yourself in those moments matters deeply. When you stumble, do you criticize yourself harshly?
Or do you offer the same kindness you'd give a friend? Telling yourself, "I'm human, I tried, and I'll try again," transforms failure into fuel. Self-compassion doesn't weaken resilience. It strengthens it by making sure you don't give up on yourself when things get hard. Gratitude is also a powerful tool for cultivating resilience. It may sound simple, but choosing to focus on what you still have rather than only on what you've lost shifts your perspective. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, but it creates balance. It reminds you that even in difficulty, there is still light, still love, still reasons to keep moving. A gratitude journal, writing down even 3 small things you're thankful for each day, can rewire your brain to notice the good alongside the struggle. And when you can see both, resilience grows naturally. Another way to cultivate resilience is to lean into community. Too often we try to fight our battles alone, believing that asking for help is weakness. But resilience isn't about isolation. It's about connection. When you share your struggles, when you let others support you, you create a network of strength that lifts you higher than you could climb on your own. Think about the people in your life who make you feel safe, who remind you of your worth, who encourage you to keep going. Choosing to reach out, to stay connected, is not a sign of weakness, it's a strategy of strength. But resilience is not just about practices and habits, it's also about perspective. Life is rarely linear. There are setbacks, detours, and disappointments. Resilience grows when you learn to see those moments not as permanent failures, but as temporary hurdles. The story you tell yourself about your struggle shapes how you respond. If you say, "This is the end," you close the door. But if you say, "This is hard, but it's not the end," you leave room for growth, for learning, and for new possibilities. Long-term resilience is built by consistency. These small choices, mindfulness, goals, self-compassion, gratitude, connection, perspective, may not seem like much in the moment, but over time, they create a reservoir of inner strength you can draw from whenever life tests you. And life will test you, that is guaranteed. But when it does, you'll discover that you are more prepared, more capable, and more grounded than you ever thought possible. Now let's talk about the benefits of cultivating this kind of resilience. When you build it into your daily life, challenges don't disappear, but they lose their power to overwhelm you. Stressful situations become manageable. Failures become lessons instead of endings. Relationships deepen because you're able to approach them with patience and empathy, instead of frustration and despair. Most importantly, life becomes less about surviving and more about living, really living. Because resilience doesn't just help you endure hard times, it also helps you fully embrace the good times without fear that they'll vanish. Imagine what your life would feel like if you knew, without a doubt, that you could handle whatever comes your way. That's what resilience gives you. Not control over circumstances, but confidence in your ability to face them. It's like building an anchor within yourself. The storms will still come, but you'll no longer feel like you're drifting aimlessly. You'll know that you can steady yourself no matter how rough the waters become. So here's the invitation. Start small. Start today. Maybe your first step is to pause tonight and write down one small act of strength you showed today. Maybe it's choosing tomorrow to set a goal you can achieve and celebrate. Maybe it's offering yourself kindness instead of criticism the next time you make a mistake. Every small choice builds momentum. Every act of resilience, no matter how quiet, matters. And don't keep it to yourself. Share your journey. Tell your story. When you open up about your unseen battles, you not only lighten your own load, but also inspire others to recognize their strength. Vulnerability doesn't diminish resilience, it multiplies it. When you say, "Here's what I've gone through, and here's how I keep going," you create a ripple effect that empowers others to see their own potential. Because the truth is, resilience isn't just about you, it's about all of us. It's about creating a world where quiet strength is seen,
honored, and encouraged. A world where no one feels invisible in their struggle. A world where we recognize that the strongest people are often the ones who keep going, day after day, without applause. So let me leave you with this thought. The battles you fight silently, the choices you make when no one is watching, the persistence you show in the face of doubt, they all matter. They are building within you a strength that no setback can erase. And every time you choose to keep going, you are not just surviving. You are living proof of the extraordinary resilience that exists in everyday life. Your unseen battles are shaping you into someone powerful, someone grounded, someone who can weather storms and still stand tall. So the next time life whispers that you can't, answer back with the quiet but unshakable truth. You already have, and you will again.
And now, it's your turn. Share your unseen battles. Tell your story. Inspire someone else to see their own resilience. Because the world doesn't just need superheroes. It needs you. Your quiet courage, your everyday strength, your unseen victories. Together, we can redefine what it means to be strong. Together, we can prove that resilience lives in all of us.